Nepal, officially the Federal Democratic Republic of Nepal, is a landlocked country located in South Asia, with an area of 147,181 square kilometers and a population of approximately 27 million. Nepal is the world's 93rd largest country by area and the 41st most populous country. It is located in the Himalayas and bordered to the north by China and to the south, east, and west by India. Nepal is separated from Bangladesh by the narrow Indian Siliguri corridor and from Bhutan by the Indian state of Sikkim. Kathmandu is the nation's capital city and largest metropolis. The mountainous north of Nepal has 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, including the highest point on Earth, Mount Everest. More than 250 peaks over 20,000 feet above sea level are located in Nepal. The southern Terai region is fertile and humid. Hinduism is practiced by about 81.3% of Nepalis, the highest percentage of any country. Buddhism is linked historically with Nepal and is practiced by 9% of its people, followed by Islam at 4.4%, Kyrgyzstan 3.1%, Christianity 1.4%, and animism 0.4%. A large portion of the population, especially in the hill region, may identify themselves as both Hindu and Buddhist, which can be attributed to the syncretic nature of both faiths in Nepal, a monarchy throughout most of its history. Nepal was ruled by the Shah dynasty of kings from 1768, when Prithvinarayan Shah unified its many small kingdoms, until 2008. A decade-long civil war involving the Communist Party of Nepal, followed by weeks of mass protests by all major political parties, led to the 12-point agreement of the 22nd of November 2005. The ensuing elections for the first Nepali Constituent Assembly on the 28th of May 2008 overwhelmingly favored the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of a federal multi-party representative democratic republic. Despite continuing political challenges, this framework remained in place, with the second Nepali Constituent Assembly elected in 2013 in an effort to create a new constitution. On September 20, 2015, a new constitution was announced by President Ram Baran Yadav in the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly was transformed into a legislative parliament. The new constitution established Nepal as a federal democratic country by making 7 unnamed states. Nepal is a developing country with a low-income economy, ranking 145th of 187 countries on the Human Development Index in 2014. It continues to struggle with high levels of hunger and poverty. Despite these challenges, Nepal has been making steady progress, with the government making a commitment to graduate the nation from least developed country status by 2022. Etymology. Local legends say that a Hindu sage named Ni established himself in the valley of Kathmandu in prehistoric times and that the word Nepal came into existence as the place was protected by the sage Ni. It is mentioned in Vedic texts that this region was called Nepal centuries ago. According to the Skanda Purana, a rishi called Ni or Namuni used to live in the Himalayas. In the Pashupati Purana, he is mentioned as a saint and a protector. He is said to have practiced meditation at the Bagmati and Kasavati rivers and to have taught there. The name of the country is also identical in origin to the name of the Nuer people. The terms Nepal, Nuer, Newell, and Nepa are phonetically different forms of the same word, and instances of the various forms appear in texts in different times in history. Nepal is the learned Sanskrit form and Nuer is the colloquial Prakrit form. A Sanskrit inscription dated 512 CE found in Tistung, a valley to the west of Kathmandu, contains the phrase, "Greetings to the Nepals," indicating that the term, Nepal, was used to refer to both the country and the people. It has been suggested that Nepal may be a Sanskritization of Newer, or Newer may be a later form of Nepal. According to another explanation, the words Newer and Newari are vulgarisms arising from the mutation of P to V and L to R. History. Ancient Neolithic tools found in the Kathmandu Valley indicate that people have been living in the Himalayan region for at least 11,000 years. The oldest population layer is believed to be represented by the Kusunda people. Nepal is first mentioned in the late Vedic Atharva Veda Parisista as a place exporting blankets, and in the post-Vedic Atharva Shir Upanishad. In Samudragupta's Allahabad Pillar it is mentioned as a bordering country. The Skanda Purana has a separate chapter known as Nepal Mahatmya that explains in more details about the beauty and power of Nepal. Nepal is also mentioned in Hindu texts such as the Narayana Puja. Tibeto-Burman-speaking people probably lived in Nepal 2,500 years ago. However, there is no archaeologic evidence of the Gopal Bansa or Kirata rulers, only mentioned by the later Licchavi and Malari eras. Around 500 BCE, small kingdoms and confederations of clans arose in the southern regions of Nepal. From one of these, the Shakya polity, arose a prince who later renounced his status to lead an ascetic life, founded Buddhism, and came to be known as Gautama Buddha. By 250 BCE, the southern regions came under the influence of the Maurya Empire of North India, and parts of Nepal later on became a nominal vassal state under the Gupta Empire in the 4th century CE. Beginning in the 3rd century CE, the Licchavi kingdom governed the Kathmandu Valley and the region surrounding central Nepal. There is a quite detailed description of the kingdom of Nepal in the account of the renowned Chinese Buddhist pilgrim monk Xuanzang, dating from c. 645 CE. Stone inscriptions in the Kathmandu Valley are important sources for the history of Nepal. The Licchavi dynasty went into decline in the late 8th century, probably due to the Tibetan Empire, and was followed by a newer or Takuri era. From 879 CE, although the extent of their control over the present-day country is uncertain. In the 11th century it seems to have included the Pokhara area. By the late 11th century, southern Nepal came under the influence of the Chalukya dynasty of South India. Under the Chalukyas, Nepal's religious establishment changed as the kings patronized Hinduism instead of the Buddhism prevailing at that time. Medieval in the early 12th century, leaders emerged in far western Nepal whose names ended with the Sanskrit suffix mala. These kings consolidated their power and ruled over the next 200 years, until the kingdom splintered into 24 petty states. Another Malla dynasty beginning with Jayasthita emerged in the Kathmandu Valley in the late 14th century, and much of central Nepal again came under a unified rule. In 1482 the realm was divided into 3 kingdoms: Kathmandu, Patan, and Bhaktapur. Kingdom of Nepal. In the mid-18th century, Prithvinarayan Shah, a Gorkha king, set out to put together what would become present-day Nepal. He embarked on his mission by securing the neutrality of the bordering mountain kingdoms. After several bloody battles and sieges, notably the Battle of Kirtipur, he managed to conquer the Kathmandu Valley in 1769. A detailed account of Prithvinarayan Shah's victory was written by Father Giuseppe, an eyewitness to the war. The Gorkha dominion reached its height where the North Indian territories of the Kumaon and Gowal kingdoms in the west to Sikkim in the east came under Nepal rule. At its maximum extent, Greater Nepal extended from the Teesta River in the east to Kangra, Himachal Pradesh, across the Sutlej in the west, as well as further south into the Terai Plains and north of the Himalayas than at present. A dispute with Tibet over the control of mountain passes and the inner Tingra valleys of Tibet forced the King Emperor of China to start the Sino-Nepali war, compelling the Nepali to retreat and pay heavy reparations to Peking. Rivalry between Kingdom of Nepal and the East India Company over the annexation of minor states bordering Nepal eventually led to the Anglo-Nepali War. At first the British underestimated the Nepali and were soundly defeated until committing more military resources than they had anticipated needing. They were greatly impressed by the valor and competence of their adversaries. Thus began the reputation of Gurkhas as fierce and ruthless soldiers. The war ended in the Sugali Treaty, under which Nepal ceded recently captured portions of Sikkim and lands in Terai as well as the right to recruit soldiers. Madesi, having supported the East India Company during the war, had their lands gifted to Nepali. Factionalism inside the royal family led to a period of instability. In 1846 a plot was discovered revealing that the reigning queen had planned to overthrow young Bahadur Kunwar, a fast-rising military leader. This led to the Kot massacre. Armed clashes between military personnel and administrators loyal to the queen led to the execution of several hundred princes and chieftains around the country. Young Bahadur Kunwar emerged victorious and founded the Rana dynasty, later known as Young Bahadur Rana. The king was made a titular figure, and the post of prime minister was made powerful and hereditary. The Ranas were staunchly pro-British and assisted him during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Some parts of the Terai region populated with non-Nepali peoples were gifted to Nepal by the British as a friendly gesture because of her military help to sustain British control in India during the rebellion. In 1923, the United Kingdom and Nepal formally signed an agreement of friendship that superseded the Sugali Treaty of 1816. Slavery was abolished in Nepal in 1924. Nevertheless, debt bondage, even involving debtors' children, has been a persistent social problem in the Terai. Rana rule was marked by tyranny, debauchery, economic exploitation and religious persecution. In the late 1940s, newly emerging pro-democracy movements and political parties in Nepal were critical of the Rana autocracy. Meanwhile, with the invasion of Tibet by China in the 1950s, India sought to counterbalance the perceived military threat from its northern neighbour by taking preemptive steps to assert more influence in Nepal. India sponsored both King Tribhuvan as Nepal's new ruler in 1951 and a new government, mostly comprising the Nepali Congress, thus terminating Rana hegemony in the kingdom. After years of power wrangling between the king and the government, King Mahendra scrapped the democratic experiment in 1959, and a partyless panchayat system was made to govern Nepal until 1989. When the Jan Andolan forced King Virendra to accept constitutional reforms and to establish a multi-party parliament that took seat in May 1991. In 1991–92, Bhutan expelled roughly 100,000 Bhutanese citizens of Nepali descent, most of whom have been living in 7 refugee camps in eastern Nepal ever since. In 1996, the Communist Party of Nepal started a bid to replace the royal parliamentary system with a People's Republic by violent means. This led to the long Nepali Civil War and more than 12,000 deaths. On June 1, 2001, there was a massacre in the royal palace. King Birendra, Queen Aishwarya and 7 other members of the royal family were killed. The perpetrator was Crown Prince Dipendra, who committed suicide shortly thereafter. This outburst was alleged to have been Dipendra's response to his parents' refusal to accept his choice of wife. Nevertheless, there is speculation and doubts among Nepali citizens about who was responsible. Following the carnage, King Birendra's brother Gyanendra inherited the throne. On February 1, 2005, King Gyanendra dismissed the entire government and assumed full executive powers to quash the violent Maoist movement. But this initiative was unsuccessful because a stalemate had developed in which the Maoists were firmly entrenched in large expanses of countryside, but could not yet dislodge the military from numerous towns and the largest cities. In September 2005, the Maoists declared a 3-month unilateral ceasefire to negotiate. In response to the 2006 democracy movement, King Gyanendra agreed to relinquish sovereign power to the people. On 24 April 2006, the dissolved House of Representatives was reinstated, using its newly acquired sovereign authority. On 18 May 2006, the House of Representatives unanimously voted to curtail the power of the king and declared Nepal a secular state, ending its time-honored official status as a Hindu kingdom. On 28 December 2007, a bill was passed in Parliament to amend Article 159 of the Constitution, replacing provisions regarding the king by provisions of the head of the state, declaring Nepal a federal republic, and thereby abolishing the monarchy. The bill came into force on 28 May 2008. Republic. The Unified Communist Party of Nepal won the largest number of seats in the Constituent Assembly election held on April 10, 2008, and formed a coalition government which included most of the parties in the CA. Although acts of violence occurred during the pre-electoral period, election observers noted that the elections themselves were markedly peaceful and well carried out. The newly elected assembly met in Kathmandu on May 28, 2008, and, after a polling of 564 constituent assembly members, 560 voted to form a new government, with the monarchist Rastriya Prajatantra Party, which had 4 members in the assembly, registering a dissenting note. At that point, it was declared that Nepal had become a secular and inclusive democratic republic, with the government announcing a 3-day public holiday from May 28 to 30. The king was thereafter given 15 days to vacate Narayanhati Palace so it could reopen as a public museum. Nonetheless, political tensions and consequent power-sharing battles have continued in Nepal. In May 2009, the Maoist-led government was toppled and another coalition government with all major political parties barring the Maoists was formed. Madhav Kumar Nepal of the Communist Party of Nepal was made the Prime Minister of the coalition government. In February 2011, the Madhav Kumar Nepal government was toppled and Jarlanath Karnal of the Communist Party of Nepal was made the Prime Minister. In August 2011, the Jarlanath Karnal government was toppled and Baburam Bhattacharya of the Communist Party of Nepal was made the Prime Minister. The political parties were unable to draft a constitution in the stipulated time. This led to dissolution of the Constituent Assembly to pave way for new elections to strive for a new political mandate. In opposition to the theory of separation of powers, then Chief Justice Kilaraj Regmi was made the chairman of the caretaker government. Under Regmi, the nation saw peaceful elections for the Constituent Assembly. The major forces in the earlier Constituent Assembly dropped to distant third and even below. In February 2014, after consensus was reached between the 2 major parties in the Constituent Assembly, Sushil Koirala was sworn in as the new Prime Minister of Nepal. In September 20, 2015, a new constitution, the Constitution of Nepal 2015, was announced by President Ram Baran Yadav in the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly was transformed into a legislative parliament by the then chairman of that assembly. The new Constitution of Nepal has changed Nepal practically into a federal democratic republic by making 7 unnamed states. On April 25, 2015, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck Nepal. 2 weeks later, on May 12, another earthquake with a magnitude of 7.3 hit Nepal, killing more than 150 people in Nepal and more than 200 people in total. In October 2015, Bidya Devi Bhandari was nominated as the first female president.